Hey guys, it's Katie and this is My Life with VEDS. Today I'm going to talk to you about my eardrums and my nose, basically ENT type issues. So I don't know how many times my eardrums have ruptured in my life, but I think it's at least 10, maybe on both sides. Both of my eardrums perforate very, very easily with an ear infection. It seems like almost as soon as I get an ear infection, my eardrums rupture. Sometimes it has been within hours of realizing that I have an ear infection. And I don't know if you've ever had an eardrum rupture, but it is pretty close. It might be the most painful experience I've had. You know, every time you have a new painful experience, you're like, oh no, that was the most painful experience that I've ever had. But eardrum ruptures are really, really painful, really painful. Sometimes I've had my eardrums rupture together. The most recent time I had an ear infection about a year ago, and I realized I had an ear infection in one ear, went to a walk-in clinic. They said, oh, you don't have an ear infection. Within a few hours, my eardrum ruptured, and then within a few hours of that, my other eardrum I realized had an infection, and it ruptured at 12 o'clock the next day before I was ever able to go back to a doctor and get antibiotics. So fast, so fast. You can't even do anything about it. Basically what happens when my eardrums rupture is I'll get a lot of pain building up because the pressure is building up like behind the eardrum, and it can't equalize on either side. I think that's what happens. So pressure build up, pressure build up, pressure build up. You're screaming, it's terrible. And then when it perforates, it's like this huge moment of relief. For me, the eardrum will usually bleed. So there's been times where I've been bleeding out of both my ears, but I'm feeling a lot better because both of them have ruptured. I had ear tubes a few times when I was a kid, which helped with that frequent ear infection problem. I've also recently discovered in the last 2 years that my nasal passages are completely collapsed. So this is gonna be awkward, but you can see that they're like flat here. Apparently they're not supposed to be like that. I had an ENT appointment a couple years ago, maybe it was about a year ago, and she said, oh my gosh, like she brought her fingers up and she went like this. She said, try to breathe in now. And I'm like, oh my God, I can't breathe out of my nose because my nasal passages are collapsed. I had no idea that was part of the reason why I have trouble breathing through my nose. So she told me that it's not only these, it's the valves inside are completely collapsed, which is why I can't breathe through my nose. So I had another appointment with an ENT not that long ago, and we're in the middle of the COVID pandemic. So I went in, I have my mask on, I've got safety goggles because I'm being extra cautious. And he asked me to take off the mask so he can put a scope like up my nose and back down my throat to make sure my vocal cords look okay. That was so uncomfortable. But as soon as I took off my mask, he's like, oh my God, your nasal passages are like totally gone. I'm like, yeah, I had another ENT tell me that. So he's trying to push this scope up my nose, like this long tube, and we're having trouble getting it past the valve in there because the valve is completely collapsed. They told me that the nasal passages, like the valve collapse and everything, is so severe that they don't think surgery would help with it. So I'm just kind of living with it. I sleep with these Breathe Right strips every night, and I have like a permanent bruise here on my nose that sometimes I cover up, but if I put a little bit of cotton underneath the Breathe Right strip, it kind of helps with the bruising. But I've been using those every night now just so that I can breathe better when I'm sleeping. Really curious how many other people have this problem with their nasal passages being collapsed. I know that the tiny nose, like the thin narrow nose, is common with vascular EDS. I hadn't really thought about the passages actually being collapsed though until within the last couple of years. So whenever that first ENT appointment was where she went like this on my nose, it made me feel a lot better. If you have the same issues, let me know. I've talked to a lot of people who also have had a lot of eardrum ruptures. I haven't talked to anybody really about the nasal passages being collapsed though, so very, very curious what your experience is. If you like this video, go ahead and hit the subscribe button. Let me know that you liked it, and I'd be really interested to hear if you had any experiences. Thank you so much for following this channel, and talk to you soon.